In this episode of Retro Tennessee Crossroads, we're going back to the early 90s and joining the Garbage Gals for a day on the job. Then we'll meet a woman who was known as Memphis Rock and Roll Granny. We'll take a ride on the Tennessee Valley Railroad. And finally, explore the mystery of the Melungeons of Hancock County. That's the lineup for this edition of Retro Tennessee Crossroads. I'm Joe Elmore. Sure glad to have you. Well, just like you at home, I'll be watching these vintage segments along with Becky Magura. She's our president and CEO here at NPT.
Thank you, Joe. You know, I'm excited to take this look back to the past at some of the favorite stories from the early days of Tennessee Crossroads.
Yeah, well, right now, let's head to 1992. What do you say?
Ooh, sounds good.
That's the time when a lot of jobs were considered men's work. You remember?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I met some hardworking women in White Bluff who were early game changers of sorts. They called themselves the Garbage Gals.
People kind of think I'm crazy, but people around here that know me, they know I am.
Meet Sheila Mash and her trusty truck, Buttercup. They're part of the first all-female trash collection company in White Bluff, Tennessee. Or perhaps anywhere, for that matter. Sheila's helpers are Sister Maxine and Maxine's daughter, Marita. Together, they cover the community. With a proficiency for collecting that's collecting rave reviews.
It's not for everybody. She and I, my sister, we've always been kind of tomboys. And I came from a family of 9 kids and on a big farm, so it's not for everybody.
Oh, I'm crazy about these girls. They're fine girls. I've known them since they were kids.
One of the reasons the ladies like this job is that it lets them stay close to their homes and children. Along the route, Buttercup stopped to let off Maxine and grandson Matthew, and well, guess who took Maxine's place?
Ever had any problems with dogs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they chase us, yeah. It's okay. It beats going to Nashville and finding a job and stuff. And we get to be outside. That's the main thing.
You like to be outside?
Yes. What I don't like is the rain. I can stand the cold, but let it rain and that's the worst thing.
This is a rain or shine kind of job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you have to stop and pack the garbage, which is about the only time you get to rest. Believe it or not, there's a kind of rhythm and flow to this job that's kind of fun. In nice weather, that is. And especially after you get the hang of all this bag tossing and even learn the proper signals.
Ready for lunch?
There's nothing like a lunch break after you've been hard at work collecting trash.
We're proud that y'all have such clean, nice smelling garbage. Really nice.
People here in White Bluff are very nice. And the town council and the mayor, everybody have been really open-minded about being the women, they gave us a chance. At first, I think they were just a little amazed, but now they seem like they love it. We have, I'd say 99% positive from people, attitude. Yeah, they like us.
Do you still get some strange looks, though, occasionally?
Yeah, when they see Buttercup and the eyelashes, we do. When they look back and see Marita or pitching, and realize we're women, we get lots of strange looks and a lot of laughs, too.
Well, no one's laughing now, not even here at the Dickson County landfill, where Sheila, Marita, and Buttercup end their workday. Let's resist any closing lines about one man's trash being another woman's treasure, or about the sweet smell of success, because sweet smelling it ain't. But we can say these cheerful, hard-working garbage gals are an asset to White Bluff, Tennessee. And many citizens hope they'll be around to pick up the pieces for a long time to come.
We'll see. As long as Buttercup wants to keep on doing it, then I guess I will.
How cool of you to jump on the back of that truck. Now, did that smell very bad back there?
Back there it was great because we had the breeze, you know, from the
Okay.
traveling Buttercup truck. But when we got to that landfill, that was my least favorite part. I don't mind telling you. Well, I think it's time for our next story. Jana Stanfield had the pleasure of meeting the one and only Cordell Jackson a few years back. Cordell proved you're never too old to play rock and roll music. In fact, she became famous worldwide as the rock and roll granny. Even starred in a commercial for Budweiser beer.
So I'm doing my sound check,
Hello, hello, hello.
and I hear this woman's voice.
Crunch that last chord. I'll show you.
She grabbed the guitar, and then she started rocking. No, I mean rocking.
Meet Cordell Jackson.
You're pretty good. Not.
Madonna, Move Over. Make room for Memphis's rock and roll granny, 68-year-old Cordell Jackson. The commercial you just saw was not Cordell's first time on the tube. Her music video was aired on MTV and VH1, and it earned her a guest slot on the David Letterman Show.
Cordell Jackson was playing rock and roll guitar when rock and roll began. She can still remember at age 12 getting in trouble when her father heard her playing a rock and roll version of Red River Valley. That didn't stop her, though. She's still rocking at churches, conventions, and college campuses. In Memphis, you'll often find her at a well-known rockers' night spot called the Antenna Club.
Welcome to the beautiful Antenna Club. And at this time, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you a woman who drives a yellow Cadillac and plays a red flame guitar. The woman who put Budweiser on the map, Miss Cordell Jackson.
Cordell Jackson's notoriety began long before her television fame. In fact, it began before television.
My dream as a child to play on the radio, that was all there was. And since then, there has been television, and here we are.
Cordell Jackson is recognized by music historians as the first female recording engineer in the country. In 1956, she formed Moon Records, the oldest Memphis record label in continuous operation. Over the years, she estimates that she's written 400 to 700 songs. Describing Cordell Jackson's music is difficult, even for her.
I've said it several different ways, from Barnyard Disaster to classical. You know, I play pretty well any type of music, and I write a lot of Christian music and produce Christian music, and I'm producing my first female artist in my 35-year history of Moon Records, and have written the songs and my first country.
Cordell says the country record she's producing on singer Susan St. John won't be Nashville country, it will be Cordell Jackson Third World country. Cordell's desire to express her individuality dates back to childhood, when her father spent $159 for her first guitar, a K Supreme.
When I first started to play the guitar, I was told by a lot of people, adult people, because I was only 12 years old, and they'd say little girls don't play the guitar, as if they were shaming me. And I would just look them straight in the eye and says, well, I do. That was my answer. And as I came along in the record making business, it was unheard of, and I certainly had it mashed out of me over and over and over and over and over, and it still occurs. But I've never let that touch me. I knew what I wanted to do. God gave me my life. He didn't give it to someone else, and I was always willing to live it. It's pretty simple.
Cordell Jackson was discovered for the commercial when 2 ad agency reps saw her video on public television in St. Louis. They came to see her perform, and within weeks, she was appearing with rocker Brian Setzer for the ad. What does she think now when she sees it?
Oh, that's me. Really. It leaves you. You forget it. And you will be sitting there in the ball game. You certainly want to see it. But by the time it's a third over, by the time, hey, that's me. You know, it leaves. It's funny how it affects you that way.
The ad has generated new generations of fans. Cordell has been surprised and delighted by the size of the crowds at her shows.
I mean, it was raining. They were sitting there with the water just rolling off of them. Nobody out of the 4,000 people they said was there moved. And they stood for an hour wet to get my autograph, and that's mind-boggling. But I love them for it, and I really appreciate that kind of expression.
Magazine writers have gone wild with articles on Cordell Jackson. She has been featured in magazines from The New Yorker to the Christian Science Monitor. Spin magazine named her one of its 35 guitar gods in its 35th anniversary of rock and roll issue. While some people her age may be thinking of slowing down, Cordell Jackson is enjoying her success and revving her engines for whatever comes next. Her goals for the future are simple.
I've always been doing what I enjoy doing, and it's all been a happy life. Whatever comes, I want to handle it well and do it well. And whatever it is, I'm going to be happy with it.
By the way, Becky, I checked up, and Cordell kept rocking until she passed away in 2004 at the age of 81.
Man,
What a
I
lady.
tell you, I love that segment. And you know, Joe, I've seen a lot of Tennessee Crossroads, but I don't think I'd ever seen that segment.
I guess we ought to move on to the next one. What do you think?
Well, I hate to move on, but I know we're going to have something great.
Well, you know, the late Jerry Thompson had a lot of fans from both his newspaper columns and his stories on Tennessee Crossroads. Now, he could find a story anywhere he went, especially somewhere like the Tennessee Valley Railroad.
At first glance, you might think this is a story about trains, and it is. But it's also about dreams. It seems the two often go hand in hand. When I was a kid, I could stand out in my yard and hear the trains go through Springfield. There's just something about the mournful whistle of a steam locomotive that conjures up dreams, dreams of all kinds. Lovers' dreams of being brought together. Adventurers' dreams of being taken far away to strange and exciting places. Mothers' dreams of trains bringing their sons safely home from war. And the dreams were as endless as a person's imagination. For me, I always dreamed of driving a steam locomotive, of feeling the rumble and the power and the heat, and blowing the whistle. Yeah, I guess that was the highlight of my dreams, blowing the whistle. Of course, as I grew older and steam engines became obsolete, my dreams faded. But sometimes dreams, even those of yesteryear, do come true. I found this out on a recent visit to Chattanooga, where steam locomotives still run the rails on a regular basis. I could feel my heart pound a little faster and my mind racing back to my childhood as I stood on the platform and watched old 630 pull into the East Chattanooga station. I even pinched myself just to see if I was dreaming. Dave Marshall is the operations manager for the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. The museum operates a restoration shop and a fully functional railroad.
Now the engine, the old 630, when was it built?
It's built in 1904. It's 84 years old now. Probably one of the oldest engines in active regular service. Now there are some older engines around. We've got some older ones here, but running every day, there are not many of them that do that.
And you carry passengers every day on the line?
Yes, sir. During the summer months, we're open 7 days a week. Monday through Saturday, we run 7 trains a day. Sunday we run 5, and every day till Labor Day. Then after that we go to weekends.
Now in October, when all the leaves change color, you have a special excursion train, don't you?
Right, that's our autumn leaf special. It runs from downtown Chattanooga to Oneida, Tennessee this year. This is our first year to Oneida in several years. It goes up through some very scenic country as far as East Tennessee, the mountains, the plateaus go. It's a beautiful trip.
One of the problems with the train is turning it around. The Tennessee Valley Railroad has a working turntable just for this purpose. The turntable was built in 1916 and is so perfectly balanced, it takes only a 25 horsepower motor to turn a train that weighs many tons. Not only does the museum operate a railroad, they also restore locomotives and rail cars. This is the Eden Isle.
And this is the way corporate executives traveled more than a half a century ago. This private rail car was built especially for the president of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. He used it as a rolling office, take him throughout the system. And what better way to travel? Thick carpet, solid mahogany, and what better way to keep an eye on your business, see how things are running. He can look at his own personal gauges and find out whether or not he's on schedule. You tell what the temperature was and how fast he was going. That's the way to travel.
I also took a walking tour of the yard, just in case I ever wanted to buy my own rail car. How do you inspect a rail car? I did it the only way I know. Finally, it was time for my dream to come true. I took my place in the cab of the engine.
You know, ever since I was a kid in Springfield, growing up on a farm, and I could hear the trains go through every morning, every afternoon. The old steam engines were the most lonesome whistle I've ever heard. I always had a dream that I'd like to sit right up in the cab of one of those big, powerful locomotives and even drive it. Well, part of that dream I'm fulfilling today. I'm sitting right up in the cab of a powerful steam locomotive. And who knows, before the day's over, I might complete the rest of that dream. They might let me drive it.
And they did. I found the throttle very responsive, engine very powerful, and the firebox very hot. But it didn't take long to get everything running smoothly. That's when I could devote my full attention to blowing the whistle. A fella can be real creative with the train whistle. You can make it a quick blast or make it moan and groan. I brush creativity aside and I just blew the whistle. After riding in the engine, I went back to the passenger cars where I enjoyed the scenery and the freedom to relax and move around. However, some passengers left no doubt as to the soothing effect the click of the rails has on a person. Sometimes it'll even put you to sleep. As I stood at the rear of the train and watched the glistening rails play out into endless ribbons of steel, I wondered if my young friends would remember this day as I would. I wondered if their first exposure to a train pulled by a steam engine would fan the flames of their dreams into a lifelong love affair with trains, and with dreams too, for that matter. I hope so, because Old 630 stands as a huffing, puffing monument to a bygone era, when people had time to dream as lavishly as they could imagine. And my presence on this train, and the rumble, and the heat, and the smell of coal smoke in the air, all stands as proof that some dreams really come true.
Wow, Joe, what a beautiful storyteller that he is.
He was a great storyteller, a poet and a philosopher at the same time, I think, and just could write about anything and expound upon anything that he experienced. Well, as they say in show business, here's something totally different, okay?
Right.
In 1992, a Crossroads crew and I traveled up to Hancock County in Upper East Tennessee. Granted, there's not much to do up there. It's one of the poorest counties in the whole nation. What makes it unique are a group of former settlers called the Melungeons. Their origin has been a source of mystery and debate for about, 2 centuries, which continues to this day.
Hancock County isn't a place you just pass through on the way to somewhere. You almost have to be heading here to arrive. If you do come here, you'll see some of the purest, unspoiled, scenic land in the state of Tennessee. Now, if beauty always equaled money, it would be a rich area, but it's not. Economically, it ranks at the bottom of the state, and it's one of the 10 poorest counties in the nation. In fact, here in Sneedville, the county seat, per capita income was just over $6,000 in the most recent survey. It's a town with no industries, theaters, or golf courses, and only one aging motel with 7 rooms. Still, for 6,700 hardy mountain people, it's a rugged home sweet home. Hancock County is also home for a vanishing race of people called the Melungeons. Although they've been part of the culture in this area since history's been recorded, no one knows exactly who they are or where they came from. Well, the Melungeon mystery is one that Scott Collins has dedicated his life to solving. Scott works here in the courthouse where he serves as clerk master and unofficial historian. His office walls bear several old pictures capturing the town's historical moments, like the annual turkey run. Now here are some local boys heading off to World War I and journeys to strange foreign lands. But the most fascinating and unique history of this region revolves around the Melungeons, an olive-skinned, dark-haired, English-speaking people who may have arrived in the late 1500s. Scott is himself a Melungeon who has grown increasingly interested in the mystery of his ancestors.
Of course, I've always felt like they were Portuguese sailors who shipwrecked off the coast of North Carolina, and that's been my theory and story all the time. And they kind of moved farther and farther east off the coast and moved back into this area in the wilderness, and they found the rich lands and rivers in this area and had just settled here.
Recent research by Dr. Brent Kennedy of Atlanta indicates a new clue in the mystery and ties to invaders from Morocco who landed in Portugal during the 7th century. Whoever they were, they probably migrated to South Carolina before finding their way to Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee.
We're going to go up on Newman's Ridge.
When the first white settlers moved into this region in the early 1700s, they found Melungeons living in peace with the Cherokee Indians. Eventually, though, the new pioneers pushed the Melungeons out of the fertile valley and up to Newman's Ridge, into a life of isolation. Scott took me to a cemetery where the earliest Melungeon settlers were buried. Until the 20th century, at least, they suffered a lot of discrimination. They had very few legal rights and little motivation for preserving their heritage. So many of the stories and clues of their early lives are buried under the crude rock grave markers.
Here's one in 1896.
Okay.
So, but most of these, I would think, would go back at least 150 years, probably.
Some stories, however, have endured through the generations. Maybe the most popular involves a large bootlegger named Mahalia Mullins. Once a sheriff tried to arrest this successful moonshiner who stayed in this mountain house mostly all of her life.
But he was invited to come on in, and so when he went in, he saw Mahalia Mullins sitting there. The big lady as she is, probably 400 to 600 pounds, told her she was under arrest, and he tried to bring her out the door and couldn't get her through the door because she was so large. So he couldn't tear the door down or tear the side of the wall out to get her out, so he just left her. And he brought the warrant back to the judge, and he had on the return, catchable but not fetchable.
In recent years, the Melungeons have intermarried and many have moved away to get work. Since most older Melungeons were told very little about their roots, not much has been passed on to those like James Goins.
But I was born and raised right here, and my dad and my mother was too. And my grandpa, he was 103-year-old when he died just a while back.
When Mr. Goins was growing up here, he says people of all origins shared a common bond and burden because of the hard times.
Well, it all depends what you're doing. If you want to work, it's all right, but if you don't want to work, you don't want to come around here.
Scott says a major documentary film and research project may soon completely unravel the Melungeon mystery, retracing the journey of the people from faraway lands to the mountains of Tennessee. And that may be good for all the people of this land who've chosen to make a life here. And especially good for the Melungeons, whose fascinating heritage and history are in danger of extinction. It's one good reason this proud Melungeon is glad to stay close to his homeland.
Maybe I can make a difference, and that's the reason I came back. And I like it here, and I guess I'll always live here.
Wow, Joe, that was such a fascinating story. And you know, I was not familiar with that story at all.
I don't think most Tennesseans are. It's a kind of a remote area of the country and of the countryside, and it is a mystery to this day. Nobody totally agrees to their origin.
Wow, but it just goes to show that people have come from all over and found a home right here in Tennessee.
Well, that is true. That is true indeed. Well, I'm afraid it's time to get back to the present day, but Becky and I will be back for another blast to the past the first Sunday of next month at 6:30 p.m. Don't forget, we'll see you then.